Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language of Elon Musk at the DealBook Summit 2023. He was interviewed by Andrew Ross Sorkin, and what we're going to be looking at is a variety of clips to see what his behavior and body language says. Before we get started, I do want to remind you that this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions based on publicly available information. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go.
Take us back to the moment at which you write that.
Trip to Israel is independent of, it wasn't like in response to that at all.
Well, we'll do Israel in just a moment.
And I have no problem being hated, by the way.
I hear
Hate
you.
away.
So as Elon Musk says this, you look at the big smile on his face, you see him looking at the audience, you see him raising his eyebrows a little bit. He really does mean what he's saying right here. Usually emotions are on both sides of the face. So when you see somebody with a big smile, you can tell whether or not it's real by whether or not the sides of their eyes wrinkle, whether or not both corners of the mouth are up. And right now, I think that he really does genuinely seem happy at the idea that he doesn't care what people think. So this seems to be a very authentic response for him.
Well, but that you are ultimately a decent and good human being.
Yes, I mean, I think I am. But I'm certainly not going to do some sort of tap dance to prove to people that I am. So as for trust, I mean, I think we can break that down in a few ways. If you want satellites sent to orbit reliably.
So Elon Musk has a very interesting way of communicating when it comes to eye contact. He's somebody that looks away from the interviewer, looks around the room, and then when he has specific points he wants to make, he looks intensely at them because he wants to make sure they're agreeing with him, and he wants to make sure that they hear what he's saying. Watch this right here. You'll see what I'm talking about.
But I'm certainly not going to do some sort of tap dance to prove to people that I am.
And then at the end of that, you see his eyebrows raise a little bit. When we want to draw attention to our face, we raise our eyebrows. So this point's very important to him. Watch this right here.
Certainly not going to do some sort of tap dance to prove to people that I am. So as for trust, I mean, I think we can break that down in a few ways. If you want satellites sent to orbit reliably, SpaceX will do 80% of all mass to orbit this year. China will do 12%. The rest of the world will do 8%. That includes Boeing, Lockheed, and everyone else. So
So if you want to know the points that are most important, when he looks at the interviewer, those are the points that are most important. Those are the words that are going to stand out. Those are the things that people are going to remember because of that shift in body language. One thing that's interesting is that the way he speaks quickly. He talks in sort of a rushed way, but at the same time, his body is very still. Oftentimes people like him, people that interact and talk like him, are very kinetic. They move around a lot. He actually doesn't move around that much, which is unusual given the way that he talks.
With respect to Tesla, we make the best cars. Whether you hate me, like me, or indifferent, do you want the best car or do you not want the best car?
So as he says these things, one thing that we oftentimes look for is deception. And one thing that people do when they are deceptive is to try to calm themselves down. So they'll touch their lips, they'll lick their lips, they'll chew on their lip. The mouth has a lot of nerves, so that's a common place that we see it. But there's other ways that people pacify themselves. But it usually requires some kind of emotion. Through all of this, through all the things that he's saying, he's not showing anything like that. So it actually seems quite likely that he believes exactly what he's saying.
So I will certainly not pander. And Jonathan, like, the only reason I'm here is because you are a friend.
Now, this is interesting. Now, his body changed as he's talking about the only reason I'm here is that you're a friend and that he's not going to pander. Now, one thing that we oftentimes do when we want to communicate and connect emotionally with people, we face them more. Just like if we want to disconnect, we face away from them. As he's talking about being a friend, he's reaching across. He's covering more space. He's actually physically getting closer to him in that sense. Watch this again. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Pander. And Jonathan, like, the only reason I'm here is because you are a friend. Like, what was my speaking fee?
You're not making any. First of all, I'm Andrew, but
yeah, sorry,
it's okay. Second of all, we've known each other for a very long time.
Andrew Sorkin. Yes.
And
listen, anything. It's that we've been friends for 16 years. And I promised you I'd be here, and that's why I'm here.
There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money,
Now let's break this down. We've seen this in the media a lot. I want to break down some of the body language we're seeing so that we can get an idea of how he was probably feeling at the time.
Leaving, we talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
Now, watch his brow right here.
Just leaving, we talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't.
All right. Now you see this right here. That's genuine anger that he's experiencing right there. And he's not talking to Andrew Sorkin. He's talking to the audience. He's talking out into the world. So in a very real way, I think he is genuinely telling advertisers that he doesn't care. And he genuinely feels angry about it. You're seeing that in his brow right there.
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f yourself.
But
go f yourself.
Now, you see the body motion. He's opening up his body. He's doing these big arm motions. And oftentimes what we see is that when people want to emphasize in a real way, when they really feel something, they really move their arms in a big way. So he really does mean what he's saying. I've seen some people questioning whether or not this was legitimate or authentic. I don't see any reason why what he's saying is not exactly what he means.
Go f yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
So I presume he's talking about Bob Iger from Disney. And it's very interesting. This comes very shortly after Dana White, who was being interviewed by Theo Vaughn, has gotten rid of Peloton from the UFC. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Dana White runs the UFC. Theo Vaughn was interviewing him, and basically Theo Vaughn said because of a guest he had, that Peloton basically was telling him to not have that guest on or something. That made Dana White angry because he was basically saying companies should not be telling us what to think or do or say or interview or whatever it is. And so now he's basically said, fine, we're going to get rid of Peloton. We're going to do something else. This is very interesting to see this shift right now where you have a couple of very powerful people saying, we don't care if you advertise with us or not. And I think in a very real way, we're seeing anger from Elon Musk. We saw anger from Dana White as well.
Well, let me ask you then.
And what we're not seeing is any stress or anxiety about this. Some people would say something like that. They would feel like they made an impulsive decision. Immediately afterwards, they get stressed out. We're not really seeing Elon Musk show any stress after saying that.
Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
Well, let me ask you then.
That's how I feel. Don't advertise.
But those advertisers, I imagine, are going to say, we didn't kill the company.
Oh, yeah?
They're going to say...
Tell it to Earth.
So once again, I'd had people question whether or not he was showing some sort of fake confidence, whether or not this was something he really meant or felt. And he's showing a lot of confidence here. He actually, if you look at the direction he's pointing his nose, he's looking up a little bit. We tend to see that when people are feeling very confident. He's not lowering his head at all, which is when people are starting to lose confidence. We're not really seeing him back off from this at all. And I don't think that he's feeling that he should actually right now. So I think that he very much feels exactly as he says. So we'll go ahead and stop right here. The body language you're going to see stays about the same throughout, but I thought it might be interesting for you to get a better idea of what Elon Musk's body language really says. And from what it appears, it seems that he legitimately is as confident as he seems. He doesn't seem too rattled by people when they're talking about boycotting him. It doesn't seem that he is feeling much other than a bit of irritation towards the advertisers. And it doesn't seem to be that he has a false sense of confidence. He truly does feel that way. Whether or not you agree with him is a whole other thing. I know there are a lot of people who love and a lot of people who dislike Elon Musk. So the goal of this is not to make you feel one way or the other about him, but to help you better understand his behavior and his body language and what it implies about the way that he's acting. Hopefully this has been helpful for you to better understand some of his body language during the summit. If there's more people you want me to analyze that are outside of true crime, which this obviously is, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.